Daniel Hayes stood on the center platform and looked up at the 847 alien species that made up the Galactic Council. The massive chamber was silent now, waiting for him to speak. They expected him to negotiate. They expected him to beg. Some probably expected him to cry. He did none of those things. "On behalf of the United Earth Government," Daniel said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "and by the authority vested in me as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, I hereby declare a state of war between humanity and the Zetharian Empire. This declaration is effective immediately." For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. The silence was so complete that Daniel could hear his own heartbeat. Then the chamber erupted. It wasn't shock. It was laughter. Hundreds of aliens made sounds of amusement. Some slapped their desks or appendages against seats. The sound rolled through the chamber like thunder. Above him, Vexter threw his massive head back, and his laughter was loudest of all. The council speaker had to sound the tone 3 times before order returned. When the noise finally died down, Vexter descended from his seat again, still making sounds of amusement. "The human has made a joke," Vexter announced to the chamber. "How delightful. I did not know your species possessed humor." "It is not a joke," Daniel said. "It is a formal declaration of war, recognized under Article 47 of the Galactic Council Charter. I have transmitted the official documentation to the Council archives. The Zetharian Empire has 24 hours to withdraw its claim on New Haven, issue a formal apology to humanity, and agree to pay reparations for this attempted theft of sovereign territory." The laughter stopped. Now the silence was different, confused, uncertain. Vexter moved closer to Daniel, and the human had to tilt his head back to look up at the massive alien. "You cannot be serious," Vexter said. "The Zetharian Empire commands 12,000 warships. How many ships does Earth possess, little human?" Daniel met the alien's burning eyes without flinching. "Enough? Enough?" Vexter repeated. "Your own military reports list fewer than 30 vessels. 30 against 12,000. Do you understand mathematics, Ambassador Hayes?" "I understand them perfectly," Daniel said. "Do you understand history, Chancellor Vexler?" "Because humanity does. We understand what happens when a strong power assumes a weak one will simply submit. We understand what happens when someone mistakes patience for cowardice. We have made that mistake ourselves in the past. We will not allow others to make it against us." Vexler leaned down until his face was level with Daniel's. The alien's breath was hot and smelled like burning metal. "You are either insane or suicidal. The Zetharian military will crush Earth in a matter of days." "Then you have nothing to worry about," Daniel said. "You have 24 hours to accept our terms. After that, we will consider your silence and acceptance of war." "Oh, we accept," Vexler said. "I accept your declaration with great pleasure. The Zetharian Empire will teach humanity a lesson about respect. Perhaps when we are done, the survivors will understand their place in the galaxy." Daniel turned away from Vexler and addressed the entire council. "Let the record show that humanity offered peace. Let the record show that we requested only what was legally ours. And let the record show that the Zetharian Empire chose war over justice." He walked off the platform and returned to his seat. Kate was staring at him like she had never seen him before. "Sir," she whispered urgently, "did you just declare war on behalf of all humanity without consulting the government?" "I consulted them during the recess," Daniel said calmly. "The President gave authorization for Protocol 7. Everything is proceeding according to plan." "What plan?" Kate demanded. "We don't have a military that can fight the Zetharians. They'll destroy Earth." "Will they?" Daniel asked. He pulled out his tablet and showed her a message. It was from Admiral Lisa Chun, commander of Earth's 3rd Fleet. The message was short. "Deployment complete. All assets in position. Awaiting your signal." Kate read the message 3 times. "All assets." "What assets?" "Where is 3rd Fleet deploying?" "Everywhere," Daniel said. The council speaker was trying to restore order, but the chamber had descended into chaos. Species were shouting at each other. arguing about what they had just witnessed. Some seemed angry that Daniel had wasted their time. Others seemed genuinely curious about what would happen next. A very few, looked worried. "This session is adjourned," the speaker finally declared. "The council will reconvene in 3 days to assess the situation. The human and Zetharian representatives are instructed to resolve their conflict, without disrupting galactic commerce or endangering neutral parties." Daniel stood and walked toward the exit. Kate followed, but she kept looking back at the chamber as if expecting someone to stop them. As they entered the corridor, an alien approached them. It was small, barely reaching Daniel's waist, with gray skin and enormous black eyes. Daniel recognized it as the representative from the Kelvin Concordat, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. "Ambassador Hayes," the small alien said. Its voice was high and musical. "Might I have a word?" Daniel stopped. "Of course, Ambassador Keln. You have done something unprecedented today," Keln said. "I must ask, do you truly believe humanity can survive a war with the Zetharians?" "Yes," Daniel said simply. "Why?" Keln asked. "I have read your species file. You are young, inexperienced in galactic matters, and your military is small. What gives you such confidence?" Daniel considered the question carefully. "Ambassador Keln, how long has your species been a member of the Council?" 9,000 years, Keln replied. "And in those 9,000 years, how many wars has the Concordat fought?" Keln's large eyes blinked slowly. 3, all defensive. All resolved through negotiation after minimal conflict. Humanity is less than 300 years old as a unified species, Daniel said. In that time, we have fought dozens of major wars. Hundreds of smaller ones. We have fought over land, resources, ideas, and pride. We have fought with swords, guns, bombs, and weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We nearly did destroy it several times. That is not something to be proud of, Keln said quietly. No, it isn't, Daniel agreed. But it taught us something that peaceful species never learn. It taught us how to be very, very good at war. The Zetharians have 12,000 ships because they built them to intimidate others. Humanity has been building ships for a different reason. We build them to win. Keln was silent for a long moment. You have hidden ships? A secret fleet? I cannot discuss military matters with non-allied species, Daniel said. But I will tell you this, Ambassador Keln. When this is over, the galaxy will understand that humanity is not weak. We are not children. We are a species that has survived everything our own world and our own people could throw at us. The Zetharians are about to learn what that means. Keln stepped back and bowed deeply. Then I wish you fortune, Ambassador Hayes, and I hope you prove me wrong when I say that I expect to see Earth in ruins within a week. Daniel and Kate continued to their shuttle. As they boarded, Kate finally spoke again. Sir, you sound very confident. But we really don't have enough ships to fight the Zetharians, do we? Daniel sat down and strapped himself in. Through the window, he could see more shuttles coming and going from the station. Some of them probably belonged to species that had just voted against humanity. They thought they had won. Kate, how many ships does Earth's military officially list in our fleet registry? Daniel asked. 32, Kate said. Mostly frigates and cruisers. A few destroyers. 1 carrier. And how many of those ships have the Council's military observers actually seen in person? Kate frowned. I don't know. Maybe ... We usually keep at least 10 out on patrol or in deep space. So the Council has seen about 20 of our ships, Daniel said. And they assumed that was most of our fleet. They assumed Earth was small and weak because we showed them a small, weak fleet. Do you know what we call that strategy, Kate? Deception, Kate said slowly. Correct, Daniel said. For 3 years, while Earth played the role of the grateful newcomer, while we smiled and voted and attended ceremonies, we were also doing something else. We were building. Not on Earth where Council observers might see. Not in our home system where their sensors could count. We were building in deep space, in systems we claimed for research, in asteroid fields we said we were mining. Kate's eyes went wide. The mining operations? The scientific stations? Those were all shipyards, Daniel confirmed. Construction facilities. Weapon factories. Training centers. The council saw what we wanted them to see. A small, peaceful species happy just to have a seat at the table. But humanity learned a long time ago that if you sit at a table with wolves, you'd better be a wolf yourself. You just don't show your teeth until you're ready to bite. The shuttle undocked and began moving away from the Celestial Forum. Kate looked out the window at the massive station. At all the species gathered there who thought they knew everything about humanity. How many ships do we really have? She asked quietly. Daniel smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. Enough to make the Zetharians regret they ever heard the word human, signal Admiral Chun. Tell her the war has begun. And Kate? Use code phrase Quiet Dawn. Kate's fingers flew across her tablet. The transport shuttle moved slowly through the darkness of space, carrying Ambassador Daniel Hayes toward the largest structure humanity had ever seen. The Celestial Forum stretched across the void like a metal city, its towers and rings spinning in perfect harmony. Lights flickered from thousands of windows where thousands of different species worked and lived and argued about the future of the galaxy. Daniel sat by the window, watching the station grow larger. He wore a simple black suit, the kind any businessman on Earth might wear. His hair was gray at the temples, and his face showed the lines of a man who had spent years thinking hard about difficult problems. Next to him, Lieutenant Kate Morrison reviewed files on her tablet, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. The Zetharians requested this emergency session, Kate said without looking up. They didn't say why, but intelligence thinks it has something to do with New Haven. Daniel nodded slowly. New Haven was Earth's newest colony, a green world on the edge of known space. 5,000 humans lived there now, building farms and towns and hoping for a peaceful life far from the crowded cities of Earth. The planet had good soil, clean water, and rich mineral deposits beneath the surface. It was exactly the kind of world that made other species jealous. How many votes do we have if it comes to a dispute? Daniel asked. Kate finally looked up, and her expression told him everything. 1 hours. The shuttle docked with a soft thump. Daniel stood and straightened his tie. He had been Earth's ambassador for 2 years now, ever since humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Council. It had seemed like such an achievement at the time. Humanity had finally been recognized as equals among the stars. Now Daniel understood the truth. Membership in the council meant nothing if nobody respected you. The docking tube opened, and they walked into the station. The corridor was wide enough to drive a truck through, and the ceiling was so high that Daniel couldn't see it in the dim light. Aliens of every possible shape moved past them. Some walked on legs, others floated, a few rolled on mechanical wheels. Some looked almost human, while others were so strange that Daniel's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms approached them. It bowed slightly, its translator device clicking before speaking in perfect English. Ambassador Hayes, the council chamber is prepared. The session begins in 10 minutes. Daniel thanked the alien and continued walking. Kate stayed close beside him, her hand resting on the tablet like it was a weapon. She had been a soldier before joining the diplomatic corps, and she still moved like one. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers all around the edges. In the center was a platform where speakers could address the gathered representatives. Daniel had seen this room many times before, but it never failed to make him feel small. 847 species had seats here. Earth had just one. Daniel walked to the human seat, a simple chair with a small desk and a microphone. Above him, hundreds of aliens were already seated, their strange faces turned toward the center platform. The room buzzed with conversation in 1,000 different languages, all mixing together into a sound like angry bees. A deep tone rang out, and the room fell silent. The council speaker, an ancient creature that looked like a floating jellyfish made of silver light, appeared above the center platform. "This emergency session is called to order," the speaker announced. Its voice echoed through the chamber without needing a microphone. The Zetharian Empire has brought a matter of territorial dispute before the Council. High Chancellor Vexter, you may present your case. Daniel watched as a massive alien descended from the upper seats. Vexter was twice as tall as a human, with red scales covering his body and eyes like burning coals. The Zetharians were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. They controlled hundreds of star systems and commanded a fleet of warships that, numbered in the thousands. Vexter reached the center platform and turned slowly, making sure every species in the room could see him. When he spoke, his voice was deep and confident. "Honored Council members," Vexter began. "The Zetharian Empire has identified a critical need for the colony world designated as New Haven by the human species. This world possesses strategic resources essential to our ongoing conflict with the Morvathi conglomerate. We have determined that the human presence on this world is both unnecessary and detrimental to galactic stability." Daniel felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. Next to him, Kate's fingers gripped the edge of her tablet. "The humans have occupied New Haven for less than 2 years, Vexter continued. They lack the technology to properly exploit its resources. They lack the military strength to defend it from hostile forces. In short, they are children playing with tools they do not understand. The Zetharian Empire formally requests that the Council order humanity to surrender all claims to New Haven within 30 days. We will, of course, offer fair compensation for their primitive structures." Murmurs of conversation rippled through the chamber. Daniel looked around and saw many aliens nodding. Some were smiling, if their faces were capable of smiling. The Council speaker turned its attention toward Daniel. "Ambassador Hayes, you may respond." Daniel stood and walked to the center platform. The walk felt very long. When he reached the spot where Vexler stood, the massive alien looked down at him with what might have been amusement. "Honored Council," Daniel said, his voice steady. "New Haven is a legally established human colony, recognized by this Council under the Settlement Accords of 2247. 5,000 human citizens live there. It is their home. The Zetharian Empire has no legal claim to this world." Vexler made a sound like grinding stones, which Daniel's translator interpreted as laughter. "Legal claims are for equals, human. Your species joined this council 3 years ago. You have fewer than 10 worlds. You possess barely 30 warships. The Zetharian Empire has existed for 12,000 years. We have earned the right to determine what is necessary for galactic order. Earth does not accept the premise that age grants the right to take what belongs to others." Daniel replied. "Then perhaps Earth needs to learn its place," Vexler said. "This council was founded on the principle of practical stability. The strong maintain order so the weak may exist in peace. Humanity should be grateful for this protection, not arrogant about rights you are too weak to defend." The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens were clearly agreeing with Vexler. Others seemed uncomfortable but said nothing. Daniel looked around and saw no allies, no species willing to speak on humanity's behalf. The council speaker called for order, and the noise gradually died down. "The matter will be put to a vote," the speaker announced. "All those in favor of granting the Zetharian petition?" Lights began appearing on the display board that circled the chamber. One by one, votes registered. Green for yes, red for no. The board filled with green. Daniel watched the counter climb. 200 votes. 400. 600. 800. "The measure passes," the speaker declared. 847 votes in favor. 1 opposed. Humanity is hereby ordered to evacuate New Haven within 30 days. "This session is—" "A moment, please," Daniel said. His voice was quiet, but something in his tone made the speaker pause. "Ambassador Hayes? I would like to request a short recess before this session is officially concluded." Vexler laughed again, louder this time. "The human wishes time to compose his surrender." "How appropriate." The speaker considered for a moment. "Granted. This session will resume in 1 standard hour." Daniel walked back to his seat. The chamber filled with conversation again. But this time Daniel heard a new tone, mockery. The aliens were laughing at him, at Earth, at humanity's presumption that they deserved respect. Kate leaned close as he sat down. Sir, we need to contact Earth immediately. We need instructions on how to proceed with the evacuation. Daniel shook his head slowly. We're not evacuating. Kate stared at him. Sir, the council voted. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice, Daniel said. He pulled out his own tablet and began typing quickly. Contact Admiral Chen. Tell her to implement Protocol 7. Kate's eyes went wide. Sir, that's... Are you certain? Completely certain, Daniel said. And Kate? Make sure the message is encrypted with the military codes, not the diplomatic channels. I don't want the council seeing this message. What are you planning? Kate asked. Daniel looked up at her, and for the first time, Kate saw something in his expression that made her forget she was talking to a diplomat. For just a moment, Ambassador Daniel Hayes looked like a soldier about to go into battle. I'm planning to teach these species a lesson they should have learned a long time ago, Daniel said. Never assume the quiet ones are weak. Sometimes they're just thinking. Kate sent the message. Somewhere far away on Earth and in hidden places throughout human space, people would be reading those orders and beginning to move. Ships would power up. Soldiers would check their weapons. Computer systems would begin calculating trajectories and target solutions. The hour passed slowly. Daniel sat in his seat, perfectly still, while around him the other species talked and laughed. Some of them glanced at the human ambassador with pity, others with contempt, none of them with respect. When the tone rang out again, calling the session, the first thing the Galactic Council noticed was the silence. For 6 hours after Ambassador Hayes declared war, humanity's communication networks continued normally. News broadcasts from Earth showed people going about their daily lives. Colony worlds transmitted their usual status reports. Human ships on patrol sent their regular check-ins. Everything seemed normal. Then, exactly 6 hours and 12 minutes after the declaration, every human transmission stopped. Earth's broadcasts went dark. Colony worlds ceased all outgoing signals. Human ships stopped responding to hails. The diplomatic channels that connected Earth to the Council closed without explanation. It was as if humanity had simply decided to stop talking to the galaxy. In the Council's intelligence center, analysts from a dozen different species stared at their monitors in confusion. Ambassador Kelm stood among them, his large black eyes moving from screen to screen. What does this mean? Asked a reptilian analyst from the Vorten cluster. Are they surrendering already? No, said another analyst, this one a floating sphere of crystalline material. If they were surrendering, they would transmit that surrender. This is something else. Kelm touched one of the displays, bringing up a map of human space. Every human world showed as a gray dot now, indicating no signal. They are preparing for something. The question is what? Does it matter? The Vorten asked. War Commander Shalanex departed for New Haven 3 hours ago with the 7th Battle Group. 400 warships. Even if humanity has somehow hidden additional ships, they cannot possibly stand against such force. Kelm said nothing. He was remembering his conversation with the human ambassador. The confidence in Daniel Hayes' voice had not been the confidence of a fool. It had been the confidence of someone who knew something others did not. On his homeworld of Zeta Prime, High Chancellor Vexler was not worried about human silence. He was celebrating. The Council had voted in his favor. Earth had foolishly declared war. Now he would teach these arrogant newcomers a lesson that would echo through the galaxy for centuries. Broadcast this on all networks, Vexler commanded his communications officer. I want every species to see what happens to those who defy the Zetharian Empire. Across the galaxy on thousands of worlds, billions of beings tuned in to watch the battle for New Haven. The broadcast showed War Commander Shalanex's flagship leading the 7th Battle Group through faster-than-light travel. The warships were beautiful and terrible, each one larger than a city block. Covered in weapons and armor. The viewing audience saw the moment the battle group emerged from FTL at the edge of the New Haven system. Sensors immediately began scanning for human defensive positions. They found nothing. "Scan again," Shalanex ordered. He was a veteran commander, covered in the scars of a dozen wars. His instincts told him something was wrong. The scanner swept the system 3 times. Still nothing? No ships. No orbital platforms. No defensive satellites. The planet itself showed no signs of life. "Send a probe to the surface," Shalanex commanded. A small unmanned craft detached from the flagship and descended. Toward New Haven, the probe's cameras transmitted images back to the fleet. What they showed made no sense. The human colony was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The buildings had been dismantled. The equipment had been removed. Even the farms had been stripped clean. It looked as if no one had ever lived there at all. "Impossible," Shalanex said. "They had 5,000 colonists. Where did they go?" "Perhaps they fled when they heard of our approach," suggested his tactical officer. "Though I do not understand how they removed everything so quickly." "It doesn't matter," Shalanex decided. "The world is ours now. Order the fleet into standard orbit. We will begin installation of our own facilities immediately." The 7th Battle Group began moving toward New Haven, 400 massive ships. Engines glowing, weapons powered and ready for any threat. The broadcast showed them in perfect formation, an unstoppable display of military might across the galaxy. The watching species nodded to themselves. This was how war was supposed to work. The strong took what they wanted. The weak fled or died. Humanity had chosen to flee. They were smart enough for that. At least. Then something changed. The first officer to notice it was a young sensor technician on Shalanex's flagship. She was monitoring the star at the center of the system, making sure its radiation wouldn't interfere with communications. That's when she saw it. "Commander," she said, her voice uncertain. "The star's luminosity is increasing." "That's impossible," Shalanex said. "Stars don't just get brighter." "It's not the star itself, sir," the technician said. "It's something between us and the star. Something big. Multiple objects. They're reflecting the star's light." Shalanex pulled up the sensor data on his command screen. His eyes widened. "Show me visual." The main display shifted to show the star. At first, everything looked normal. Then, slowly, shapes began to emerge from the stellar glare. They were dark silhouettes at first, barely visible against the star's brightness. But as they moved forward into clearer space, their forms became distinct. Ships. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. But they were unlike any ships the Zetharians had seen before. They were not sleek or elegant. They were blocky, utilitarian, covered in armor plating and weapon mounts. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only, to fight. "Identification?" Shalanex demanded. "Unknown class," the sensor officer replied. "Unknown design. Unknown capabilities." "Commander, I'm reading over 300 vessels." 300? Shalanex repeated. "That's impossible. The humans only have 30 ships in their entire fleet." "These vessels do not match any known human design," the officer said. "But they're broadcasting human identification codes." "Commander, we're being hailed." "Put it on screen," Shalanex ordered. The display changed to show the bridge of one of the unknown human ships. A man in a dark military uniform stood at attention. Behind him, crew members worked at stations that looked primitive compared to Zetharian technology. Everything was manual controls and physical displays, but the crew moved with perfect coordination like parts of a machine. "This is Captain Ryan Porter of the Earth Space Command vessel Valiant," the human said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "You have entered sovereign human territory without authorization. You are in violation of the settlement accords and the laws of galactic warfare. You have 15 minutes to withdraw your forces from this system." Shalanex stared at the human. Then he began to laugh. It started as a low rumble and grew into a roar that echoed through the bridge. 15 minutes? Shalanex said when he could speak again. "Human, I command 400 warships of the Zetharian Empire. You have, what, 300 primitive vessels? You are outgunned and outclassed? Surrender now, and I will allow your crews to live as prisoners. Captain Porter's expression didn't change. Your 15 minutes have begun, Commander. I suggest you use them wisely. I suggest you learn what real power looks like, Chalanex replied. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their flagship. Fire when ready. Yes, Commander. The Zetharian flagship's main cannon charged, a weapon that could punch through the shields of any known ship. Energy gathered in the firing chamber, building to destructive levels. Then it released. A beam of pure energy crossed the space between the fleets in less than a second. It struck the Valiant directly in the bow. For a moment, the human ship was surrounded by a brilliant explosion. When the light faded, the Valiant was still there. Its armor was scarred and blackened, but it was still there. Impossible, Chalanex whispered. Nothing survives a direct hit from a primary cannon. Their armor appears to be some form of layered composite, the tactical officer said, studying the sensor readings. It's crude, but extremely thick. Commander, these ships aren't using energy shields. They're relying on pure physical armor. Then we'll simply hit them again, Chalanex said. All ships, open fire. Destroy the human fleet. 400 Zetharian warships opened fire simultaneously. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and missile swarms filled the space between the fleets. It was the most concentrated firepower most of the crew had ever seen unleashed at once. The human fleet didn't try to dodge. They didn't activate defensive shields. They simply took the hits, and they fired back. The human weapons were nothing like the elegant energy systems the Zetharians used. They were kinetic cannons, firing solid projectiles at incredible speeds. They were missile pods, launching dozens of guided warheads. They were rail guns, using magnetic acceleration to turn simple metal slugs into armor-piercing rounds. The weapons were primitive, but they worked. A Zetharian cruiser exploded as a volley of kinetic rounds tore through its hull. Another ship went dark as a human missile severed its main power line. A third began spinning out of control when railgun fire destroyed its maneuvering thrusters. Evasive action, Chalanex shouted. Return fire. Destroy them. The battle became chaos. The Zetharian ships tried to use their superior speed and maneuverability to outflank the human fleet. But the humans didn't fight like any species the Zetharians had faced before. They didn't try to be elegant or efficient. They just kept firing, pouring endless streams of projectiles into the Zetharian formation. A human destroyer took multiple direct hits and began venting atmosphere. Instead of retreating, the Battle of New Haven changed everything overnight. Within hours, every species in the galaxy had seen the footage. The confident Zetharian fleet arriving to claim an easy prize. The mysterious human ships emerging from hiding. The brutal, efficient battle that followed. High Chancellor Vexler stood in his war room on Zeta Prime, surrounded by his military advisors. The holographic display showed the current position of all Zetharian fleets. What it also showed were the losses at New Haven, marked in red. 300 warships, Vexler said, his voice dangerously quiet. We lost 300 warships to a species we believed had only 30 vessels in their entire fleet. Explain this to me. War Commander Chalanex, who had managed to escape New Haven with the remains of his battle group, stood at attention. His scales were dulled with shame. Lord Chancellor, the humans were waiting for us. They knew we were coming. They knew our tactics. And their ships, while primitive in design, were built specifically for war. Every system was designed for maximum damage output and survivability. They sacrificed speed and elegance for pure fighting capability. Where did these ships come from? Vexler demanded. How did we not know about them? A smaller Zetharian and intelligence officer marking stepped forward. We have been reviewing all surveillance data on human space for the past 3 years. It appears that many facilities we believed were mining operations or research stations were actually shipyards. The humans used automated construction systems hidden in asteroid fields and remote systems. Our observers never suspected because the humans were very careful to show us only what they wanted us to see. Deception, Vexler hissed. They deceived the entire council. Yes, Lord Chancellor, the intelligence officer confirmed. And we now believe the 300 ships we saw at New Haven are not their entire fleet. Analysis of human industrial capacity suggests they could have built significantly more vessels. Vexler slammed his fist on the table. And then we will send more ships. Assemble the 2nd and 5th battle groups. That's 3,000 vessels. Let's see their hidden fleet stand against that. In the council chamber, Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood before the assembled species. The emergency session had been called to address the battle. Every species wanted answers. The council speaker floated above the center platform. Ambassador Hayes, the council demands an explanation. You assured us that Earth sought only peace, yet you have destroyed over 300 Zetharian vessels. Daniel looked around the chamber calmly. The Zetharian Empire attempted to steal human territory and threatened our citizens. We defended ourselves. The Council Charter specifically allows for military action in defense of sovereign territory. You hid the true size of your military, accused the Vorton representative. You lied about your capabilities. We never lied, Daniel replied. The Council asked how many ships we had in active service. We told the truth. We had 32 ships in active service. What we didn't mention was the 2,000 additional ships in reserve, under construction or stationed in defensive positions throughout human space. The chamber exploded in noise. 2,000 ships? The number seemed impossible for such a young species. Daniel waited for the noise to die down before continuing. For 3 years, Earth has attended these council sessions. We voted on matters of galactic importance. We signed treaties and trade agreements. We smiled and acted grateful for the chance to sit among you. But we also studied. We studied galactic politics. We studied the wars other species had fought. We studied the tactics they used. And we learned one very important lesson. He paused, making sure every species was listening. We learned that in this galaxy, weakness is not tolerated. Species that cannot defend themselves are taken advantage of. Territory is seized. Resources are stolen. And the Council, despite all its fine words about justice and law, does nothing to protect the weak from the strong. 847 species voted to give our world to the Zetharians. Only one voted against it, us. You were a new member, someone called out. You had not earned the right to challenge ancient powers. Earned? Daniel repeated. Rights are not earned. They exist or they don't. But you're correct about one thing. We are new to galactic politics. So we watched how things really work here. We saw that the Council respects only power. Words mean nothing. Treaties mean nothing. The only thing that matters is the ability to defend what is yours. He pulled out a data tablet and held it up. So while we were sitting in these chambers, listening to species far older than us explain how the galaxy works, humanity was building. We built ships. We built weapons. We trained crews. We established defensive networks. We did everything necessary to ensure that no one could simply take from us what we had earned. A new holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the scope of human military forces. The assembled species stared at it in shock. The display showed not just ships, but orbital weapons platforms, hidden defensive stations, and military installations scattered across dozens of systems. This is what humanity has been doing for 3 years, Daniel said. We prepared for the day when someone would test us. We knew it would happen. History teaches that it always happens, so we made sure that when it did happen, we would be ready. Director Nicole Barnes, head of Earth Intelligence, stepped up beside Daniel. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. The Galactic Council exists in a state of comfortable stagnation, she said. Most species here have not fought a real war in centuries. Your military doctrine focuses on intimidation and limited engagement. Your ships are designed to look impressive and to win battles with minimal losses. That makes sense for species that view war as a last resort. She gestured to the display. Humanity does not have that luxury. We are new to the galaxy. We are outnumbered by every major power. So our military was designed with a different philosophy. Our ships are not meant to look impressive. They are meant to win. Our tactics are not meant to be elegant. They are meant to be effective. And our soldiers are not trained to fight limited engagements. They are trained to win wars. This is barbaric, said a representative from a pacifist species. You speak of war as if it is normal. For humanity, it is normal, Nicole replied. We spent most of our history fighting ourselves. Nation against nation, army against army. We developed weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came very close to using them. That experience taught us something valuable. It taught us that when survival is at stake, there are no rules. There is only winning or losing. The chamber fell silent. Many species looked uncomfortable. The idea of a species that was naturally warlike, that understood conflict on such a deep level, was disturbing to creatures who had lived in peace for generations. Vexler's voice boomed from his seat. Impressive words, Ambassador. But words are not warships. The Zetharian Empire is deploying 3,000 vessels to New Haven. Let's see if your philosophy holds. Against real military might. Daniel looked up at the massive alien. Chancellor Vexler, I would like to make one thing clear. The battle at New Haven was a warning. We used a small portion of our fleet to demonstrate that we are serious about defending our territory. What you saw as a defeat, we considered a test. We wanted to see how the Zetharian military fights. We wanted to understand your tactics, your capabilities, your weaknesses. He smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. Thank you for the information. It will be very useful in the coming battles. Vexler's eyes burned with rage. You dare to mock the Zetharian Empire? No, Chancellor. I'm simply telling you the truth. You have 3,000 ships heading to New Haven. We know this because we've been tracking your fleet movements since the day war was declared. We know the composition of your forces. We know which commanders are leading them. We know their planned approach vectors, and we have prepared accordingly. Daniel turned to address the entire council. I want every species in this chamber to understand what is happening. The Zetharian Empire attempted to take human territory through legal manipulation. When that failed, they chose military action. They believed humanity would be an easy target. They were wrong. Now they are escalating, sending more ships, hoping to overwhelm us through sheer numbers. He paused. They will fail. Not because humanity has more ships than the Zetharians, we don't. Not because our technology is superior, it isn't. They will fail because humanity understands something that the galaxy has forgotten. War is not about having the best equipment or the largest fleet. War is about will. It's about being willing to do whatever is necessary to protect what is yours. It's about never surrendering, never retreating, never accepting defeat. Admiral Lisa Shun appeared on the display, broadcasting from the bridge of her flagship. She wore a crisp military uniform, her expression hard and focused. All human military forces are now at full combat readiness, she announced. We have deployed additional fleets to New Haven. We have activated defensive networks throughout human space. And we have implemented contingency protocols that will ensure Zetharian aggression is met with overwhelming force. What contingencies? Demanded a council member. For every Zetharian ship that enters human space, we will destroy 2, Lisa said simply. For every human casualty, plus. The Zetharian 2nd and 5th battle groups arrived at New Haven 6 days after the first battle. 3,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. It was the largest military force assembled in the sector in over 2 centuries. Fleet Marshal Corvin, the supreme commander of Zetharian military forces, led the armada personally from his massive command ship. Corvin was an old warrior, covered in scars from a dozen wars. He had been fighting battles when humanity was still learning to build wooden boats. He looked at the sensor displays showing the human defensive fleet and allowed himself a thin smile. 500 human vessels, he said to his bridge crew. They think 500 ships can stand against 3,000. Their arrogance will be their end. What Corvan didn't know was that the 500 ships were not the entire human fleet. They were bait. Admiral Lisa Chun commanded the human forces from the ESS Washington, a massive battleship that had been built in secret over the past 2 years. Around her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence. Every person knew their role. Every system had been checked and rechecked. "Enemy fleet is taking position," reported the tactical officer. "They're spreading out, trying to surround us?" Lisa nodded. "Let them. Maintain current formation. Wait for my signal." The Zetharian fleet moved into attack position. Kovan had learned from the first battle. His ships stayed at long range, using their energy weapons to bombard the human fleet from a distance. He would not allow his forces to get close enough for the brutal close-range combat. The humans seemed to prefer energy beams cross the space between the fleets. Human ships took hits, their armor absorbing the damage. Some vessels were destroyed, their crews dying in explosions of fire and metal. But the humans didn't retreat. They just kept returning fire with their kinetic weapons and missiles. "Steady losses on both sides," Carvan's tactical officer reported. "At this rate, we will achieve victory in approximately 8 hours. Continue the assault," Corvan ordered. "Rotate damaged ships to the rear. Bring fresh vessels to the front lines." Then something changed on the sensors. "Fleet Marshal," the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain. "I'm detecting multiple F-signatures. New contacts emerging from hyperspace." "Reinforcements," Corvan said, unconcerned. "The humans are bringing in more ships. It won't be enough." "Sir, the number of contacts it's very large. One count over 1,000 vessels." Kovan's head snapped toward the display. The sensor officer was correct. Human ships were emerging from faster-than-light travel all around the battle zone. Not just from one direction, but from every direction. The Zetharian fleet was suddenly in the center of a sphere of human warships. "Impossible," Corvan whispered. "Where did they all come from?" The answer was simple. While the Zetharians had been focusing on New Haven, human fleets had been moving into position from hidden bases throughout the sector. They had been waiting, spread across dozens of systems. For exactly this moment, Admiral Jack Foster commanded the human reinforcement fleet. His flagship, the S. Lincoln, led a force of 600 ships that had just jumped in behind the Zetharian formation. On his tactical display, he could see Admiral Chun's fleet in the center, Admiral Porter's fleet arriving from the north, and Commander Alex Grant's carrier group approaching from the south. "All units. This is Admiral Foster," he broadcast on the command channel. "Execute Operation Hammer. All ships are weapons free. Target priority is enemy capital ships. Let's end this." The battle transformed in seconds. What had been a long-range bombardment became a three-dimensional nightmare for the Zetharian forces. Human ships attacked from every direction, their missiles and kinetic rounds tearing through Zetharian formations. The energy shields that protected the alien vessels were designed to stop beams and plasma, not solid projectiles moving at enormous speeds. Zetharian ships began dying by the dozens. A battle cruiser exploded as a wave of missiles overwhelmed its defenses. A carrier went dark when railgun fire severed its main power conduits. A destroyer simply broke apart when a human ship rammed it at full speed. "All ships evasive maneuvers," Kovan shouted. "Reform the line. Concentrate fire on the nearest human vessels." But there was no line to reform. The human attack was too coordinated, too aggressive. They fought like a pack of predators, targeting damaged ships, exploiting weaknesses, showing no mercy. When a Zetharian vessel tried to retreat, human fighters pursued it, firing until it was destroyed or disabled. Commander Alex Grant led his fighter wing through the chaos of the battle. His pilots flew with reckless precision, weaving between capital ships to deliver missile strikes against vulnerable points. When his wingman's fighter took critical damage, Alex didn't order a retreat. He ordered the pilot to ram the nearest enemy cruiser. "All pilots, this is Commander Grant. Remember your training. We are not here to survive. We are here to win." Every enemy ship you destroy is one that can't threaten Earth. Make your deaths count if they must, but make the enemy pay dearly for every human life. On the ESS Washington, Lisa Chen watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Zetharian fleet was breaking apart. Some ships were trying to retreat. Others were attempting to rally for a counterattack. None of it was working. Captain Reyes, how are we doing? Lisa asked. Captain Susan Reyes stood at the helm of her own ship, the S. Arizona, which was currently engaging 3 Zetharian destroyers simultaneously. 2 destroyers down, Admiral. Working on the 3rd. Our hull integrity is at 60%, but we're still in the fight. Good, Lisa said. After you finish with those destroyers, I have a special assignment for you. What kind of assignment? Lisa smiled coldly. The kind that ends wars. Fleet Marshal Corvin watched his fleet die. Ships that had served the Zetharian Empire for decades were being torn apart by human weapons. Crews that had trained for years were being killed by an enemy that fought with a savagery the galaxy had not seen in centuries. Withdraw, Corvin finally ordered. All ships retreat to rally point. His command ship shuddered as a human missile barrage struck the aft section. Systems began failing across the bridge. The lights flickered. Sir, we've lost main engines, the engineering officer reported. Secondary power is failing. We need to evacuate. Kovan looked at his display one last time. Of the 3,000 ships he had brought to this battle, fewer than 800 remained combat capable. Over 2,000 vessels destroyed or disabled in less than 6 hours. It was the worst military defeat in the Zetharian history. Broadcast our surrender? Corvin said quietly. Tell the humans we yield. The message went out across all frequencies. The Zetharian fleet was surrendering. The battle was over, but the war was not yet finished. 12 days after the Battle of New Haven, Captain Susan Reyes led a small strike force to the Zetharian homeworld of Zitha Prime. Her orders were clear. Demonstrate Earth's reach. Show the Zetharians that nowhere in their empire was safe from human retaliation. The strike force consisted of just 5 ships. They jumped into the system, their sensors immediately detecting the massive defensive fleet that protected the Zetharian capital. Hundreds of ships stood between Susan's small force and the planet. She didn't try to fight them. She just needed them to see. All ships broadcast the message. Susan ordered. Every vessel in her strike force activated its communications array. The message was simple, transmitted in every language the Zetharians used. This is the Earth Space Command. Your fleet at New Haven has been destroyed. Your forces have surrendered? We are now here at your homeworld to demonstrate a simple truth. We can reach you. We can reach any world in your empire. This war ends when you accept our terms. Not before. Alarms blared across Zitha Prime as the human ships were detected. The defensive fleet scrambled to intercept. But by the time they reached attack range, the human vessels had already jumped back to hyperspace. They were gone before a single shot could be fired, but the message had been delivered. Humanity could strike at the heart of the Zetharian Empire whenever they chose. Hi. Chancellor Vexter watched the footage of the human ships appearing in orbit above his homeworld. His hands were shaking. In his long life he had never felt true fear. He felt it now. Prepare a message, he told his communications officer. To Ambassador Hayes, we accept Earth's terms. All of them. 18 days after Ambassador Daniel Hayes declared war, it ended. The Zetharian Empire broadcast its unconditional surrender across all galactic networks. They withdrew all claims on New Haven. They issued a formal apology to humanity. They agreed to pay reparations that would take decades to complete, and the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Daniel Hayes returned to the council chamber for the first time since the war began. He walked to the center platform, his footsteps echoing in the quiet room. Every species was present. Every seat was filled. But no one was talking. The council speaker addressed him. Ambassador Hayes, the council acknowledges the resolution of the conflict between Earth and the Zetharian Empire. The vote regarding New Haven is hereby rescinded. The colony remains under human control. Thank you, Daniel said simply. However, the speaker continued, the Council has concerns about Earth's military buildup and the deception involved in hiding your true capabilities. Several members have called for sanctions or restrictions on human military development. Daniel looked around.